Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Sunny Vanderstar. Today's topic is Know Before You Go, Bears of Brooks Falls Photo Pro Expedition. And it will be presented by our fabulous NatHab expedition leader, Justin Gibson. Justin, thank you so much for being here today and for taking us with you to Alaska to hear all about this amazing trip. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Hey there, thank you, Sunny. Hey, everybody from sunny Anchorage, Alaska. It's our second sunny day in about a month. It's been a little bit of a rainy start, but I'm hoping that by the fall, it has ironed itself out and we get a really, really nice fall. Thanks, Sunny. I am Justin Gibson. I'm a field operations manager here in Alaska and also an expedition leader. Started as a bear biologist, sort of transferred into wildlife photography. So that makes me a pretty good candidate to guide this trip. And actually, I helped NatHab create this trip. I really wanted to go to Brooks Falls after the season was over because it can be a little crowded. For instance, today, while the bears are many, but so are the people. And I really wanted selfishly to start going there after the lodge was closed and after most tourists stopped going. And so we created this wonderful itinerary to get us there to watch these, gigantic bears gorge themselves on salmon, and leading up right up to what we call, the National Park Service calls Fat Bear Week, which I'm sure a lot of you know and follow, where, it's a popularity contest and you vote on your favorite fattest bear. So we're right on the cusp of that before the season ends. We'll just dive right in. Alaska has always been a place of mystery for folks. Its grandness and wildness conjure immense ideas of, these huge grand adventures. And often people quickly turn their thoughts to bears. We don't only see bears on the trip. We get to experience their remote world without the crowds as they make their last push to make as much fat as possible, pack it on before a long, dark, cold winter. I'm often jealous of them just being able to hibernate through a winter when humans are up here freezing and dealing with the darkness. It does come with its challenges going out there this time of year. The winter is fast approaching by the end of September, and the bears know that. And if you're going on this trip, you should too. The packing list can be tricky because you have to pack for a number of different weather conditions that are possible. Rain is likely, if not pretty much a guarantee. Sleet might happen, and snow is also possible. This picture was taken 2 years ago when we actually had a snowstorm, which was always a dream of mine to get bear pictures with snow. But we certainly paid the price as far as comfort goes. But so safe to say, unless El Nino decides to get its hooks in Alaska, which it really hasn't yet, but it usually would hit towards the fall time. So that's why I'm sort of hoping for a very nice, sort of warmer fall than normal. It will be cold otherwise, so be prepared for that. What to bring? Certainly, these two are geared up for a rainy day. So definitely waterproof everything. Rain jacket, rain pants. You also want to prepare for those really cold mornings. It certainly gets below freezing in the morning sometimes, so a puffy jacket, gloves, beanies. Certainly waterproof hiking shoes are important, because if you are all geared up in all this weatherproof gear and you forget to pack waterproof shoes, your feet are gonna be very cold. So make sure to remember that portion. And it's always in Alaska about layers, whether it's a really sunny day or the middle of winter, you want to dress in layers. So you want sort of a synthetic base layer and then a fleece layer, followed by a soft shell layer that can also potentially be a rain jacket as well. And then of course gloves and hats for those colder mornings or just colder days in general. I like to bring up what to bring in your bag. So first thing, things happen. So you always want to have your medications with you that you might need, just in case we are a few hours delayed because of fog or something that rolls in. Certainly you want your wallet because at Brooks, the visitor center will still be open. And if you are interested in any retail therapy, so to speak, there will be books and maybe some t-shirts and that kind of thing still. Your layers that we just mentioned, thermos mugs that we provide for you, water bottles that we provide for you, sunscreen, just in case, maybe it's wishful thinking, but you never know this year. Binoculars certainly, and of course, because this is the Photo Pro trip, make sure to bring all that camera gear, which we will get into shortly here. One thing that I'm sure will come up will be, do we get in waders? And that really all depends on a lot of factors. We do not get in waders and go into the Brooks River itself. We try our hardest to keep that important feeding ground impacted as little as possible. We might see others in the river fishing, even photographing, but the National Park Service and Natural Habitat have both found that these bears are very much affected by people being in the river. Certainly this time of year, it can get a little crowded. And so we just try to avoid that. You know, part of our ethos is, part of NatHab is to try to stay out of their way and not alter any wildlife's behavior. You know, it's a really, really tough time of year for them. They're really stressed. They're trying to put on as much weight as possible. And so we just don't want to interfere with that, especially at Brooks, because there might be other people in the river. Certainly not as crowded as right now, but still it is something that we are considering all the time. Other rivers, if we do end up going to other rivers that don't get as much visitation from June through early September, they are less impacted. And so if the conditions are right, meaning the rivers are low enough and the bears happen to be in those other rivers, we might pivot for one of those full days and go check out an area with little or no infrastructure. We will get into waders that are provided for you and go hang out with the bears on the ground level. And again, if we can go to another river, all really depends on how high that water system is and what the bears are doing on those systems. How has the salmon year been? Is it stressful for the bears this year? Are they really fat and lazy that time of year? There's a lot of things that go on during that time to decide where we go. And certainly if you're on this trip with me, I will make sure to communicate what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it as we go. So it's best to be prepared to get into waders just in case, but it's also very, very important that, for instance, you bring rain pants. If you're wearing waders, you would not need rain pants, but we can't promise that. So make sure to bring waterproof boots and rain pants as well. As far as photography equipment goes, I have found that a zoom is very important versus a prime lens. For instance, if you had a 500 millimeter lens, you will definitely get some really good close-up shots, but you will also miss so many shots of bears up close. So you'll definitely have wildlife up close and in person, you know, right in your face at times. But then you'll also see a moose running by a bend in the meadow and need to use that full zoom to get the shot, like this shot last year on this particular trip. So if you were using a prime lens, you would definitely miss some shots, whether they be close up or far, depending on your lens. So I happen to shoot Sony, so my go-to lens is a 200 to 600 millimeter. And then I also carry a 70 to 200 millimeter range. So I can maximize that shooting range. And if you have 2 camera bodies, that's even better. Then you have a 70 millimeter to a 600 millimeter range without a break. And so that would provide some pretty nice shots. I truly recommend thinking on what you want to bring so you aren't loaded down with so much gear that you tire out on long walks and miss shots because you have too much gear. I've seen so many times that our travelers miss that type of moose shot because they have too much gear. If you are quote unquote gearhead like myself, I have found that it's easiest to simplify to make sure you're not missing shots. And you know, one thing to bring for sure, if you aren't a fan of editing in Lightroom or some other editing software, I would recommend a polarizing filter to make sure those fall colors pop, because the fall colors will be in full swing during this trip. We'll go ahead and shift gears a little bit and get into the itinerary. You will arrive in Anchorage, Alaska at the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. And myself or a co-guide will pick you up and take you to the hotel, the Captain Cook Hotel, downtown Anchorage. It is helpful to have some Nat Hab clothes on you or luggage tags visible. It just makes finding you that much easier. You know, most places throughout the trip will take credit cards, so you can also pull out cash in Anchorage. So I think that would cover you as far as retail therapy and so on and so forth. If you happen to arrive early, in other words, before the welcome dinner day, before day 1, you'll want to make your way to the hotel of your choice on your own, and you'll have information ahead of time about where and when to meet the group. But all of our guests will be staying at the Captain Cook for the official start of the trip. And by the way, if you're coming in early, there are plenty of things to do in Anchorage. A few things that I would recommend. Certainly the Anchorage Museum is amazing. The second floor is curated by the Smithsonian. It is absolutely worth seeing. The Alaska Heritage Center is really a special place to learn about the different native groups within the state of Alaska and to pay a little respect that way. It's really well done. And of course, shopping downtown can be pretty fun. If you are interested in some local cuisine, of course, you can try some halibut, some king crab legs, or even a reindeer hot dog. This is our Anchorage hotel at the Captain Cook. So very posh, very nice views, no matter which way you're facing, very comfortable. From there, we will actually do a lot of plane travel. So we will be traveling by a medium-sized plane to King Salmon from Anchorage. It's about an hour's journey. And then from there, every day, twice a day, we will be in float planes. So a float plane from King Salmon, which is our home base where the next lodge where I'll show you is, and basically to anywhere else, whether it be Brooks River or any other river we get to experience, again, based on weather and river conditions. And those journeys are usually about 30 to 45 minutes each way. And this is sort of where we go. It's from Anchorage, about 280 miles all the way to King Salmon, where our Gold Creek Lodge is. And then from there, certainly traveling to Brooks Falls or maybe another river in here as well, depending again on all of those conditions. This is the Gold Creek Lodge, and it is a very comfortable place. About 10 minutes from the King Salmon Airport. And on that first day, what we'll do is anything that is not day pack related or camera related will get picked up by Gold Creek Lodge and taken to the lodge while we get shuttled to the float plane and directly into our adventure of photographing bears at Brooks. The meals at Gold Creek are phenomenal. They have a top-notch chef, and all the meals basically on the trip, once we're in out of Anchorage, will be provided by Gold Creek. So we'll have amazing breakfast in the lodge as well as dinners at the lodge itself. And for lunches, they will pack field meals curated by Gold Creek Lodge as well. Oftentimes, that means sitting down eating inside an electric fence and watching these big fat bears walk by. So that's a really special moment for folks. They are really good at accommodating for dietary restrictions. The kitchen staff really is good. When at Brooks, the walk to the falls is around 3 miles round trip from the floatplane area. Most folks usually get about 6 miles or more in a day walking on these flat paths and looking for bears along the way. If we get to other river system, the difficulty goes up as we start to wade in. We'll be in waders wading through these knee-high streams to get to our destination, wherever that may be. While Brooks has very nice platforms that I'll show you in a minute and benches, other river systems have very little infrastructure at all. So we'll be sitting on the ground or on riverbanks most of the time. And here is what it looks like. This is one of the boardwalks crossing the lower part of Brooks River. And so it really just depends on the year, how many bears are actually at the falls. It really depends on how robust the salmon year was, the salmon run. But even if they're not running at the time, then they spawn and their bodies float down river. So it's either there's a lot of bears at the falls or there are so many bears that are hanging out right by this bridge. And it's really fun to kind of hang out on this bridge and watch them swim and try to pick up those dead salmon that are bright red. The colors are really fantastic. Other wildlife possible? Well, it's a huge bird migration period as they push south. So, the potential to see lots of rare birds is pretty high. Harlequin ducks, golden eyes, a number of different things. So if you're a birder, this is a really good time to be in Katmai National Park and Brooks River. Other wildlife possible, because there are not a lot of people during that time, so it's quieter and there's a lot of food to go around. Believe it or not, I've even seen moose slurping up these dead salmon. So other potential wildlife would be lynx, bald eagles, porcupines, red foxes, moose, even gray wolves I've seen on this trip. And the fall colors are just fantastic. These bears don't move very fast, so getting landscape shots with wildlife in the corner of your shot is almost a guarantee. It's one of my favorite ways to shoot. And I have left a lot of time for questions because I know that it is sort of a unique trip, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, whether it be about snow or waders or about the bears themselves. So let's just jump into it.
Thank you so much, Justin. This trip looks absolutely incredible. We have a lot of questions already lined up, but I just want to remind everyone that they can submit their questions via the questions field in their control panel. So this is one that comes up a lot, and I don't know if there's an easy answer for it, but you listed a lot of things to pack, a lot of clothing and camera equipment. How do you fit that all in your bag with the weight restrictions? Any advice on what to leave at home?
That's a good question. So we're there for a few nights, and a lot of that stuff will be taken to Gold Creek Lodge, and so that's not really a pinch point, just how you would pack for any other trip. The trick then is what you're bringing to Brooks or any other river system. And the way I do it is I carry my camera, one camera with me with a 200 to 600. And then I have a pretty robust camera bag with another camera and another lens. And everything else is really dependent on how light your gear is. So I have rain gear that's fairly light. I have a puffy jacket that is pretty warm, but also light and it packs down very easily. Binoculars are around my chest, around my neck rather, and it seems to all work out pretty well. Um, Certainly it's a tricky one to do because we're in the field all day and we can't just change out gear without flying back all the way to Gold Creek, which is not possible. So it is tricky to do. I would recommend just layering up. It's always going to be cold in the morning. I guarantee you, no matter how hot it gets during the day, it'll start near freezing, which means that when you start your day, you can have all those layers on, and as the day progresses, you can pack it down into your bag, and that seems to do okay for everybody.
Great. And then related, do you need to have room in your day pack for the waders? Like, if you put them on, will you be wearing them all day, or will you take them on and off and need to have
Oh,
space to store those while you're not using them?
yeah, that's a great question. Well, how that works is the morning. Well, I would tell you the night before if I decided that it is A, safe, and B, we're going to have a good time to go to a different river system. I would let you know that the night before so you can kind of mentally prepare, because it is a foreign concept to folks who haven't done it before. And then that morning we will gear up in the waders and make sure they're nice and comfortable, and you will wear those all day. Um, you know, taking them off won't really help because we'll want to be able to pivot and change directions based on the sun or the bear activity. So you won't need any room for those waders in your bag. You would be in those things all day. And actually, they're a lot more comfortable than people think. And that's always a comment I get on the end of the trip if we are lucky enough to get into waders and go to another river, is that people want to go home and buy some because it's like a cheat code. You can just tramps around anywhere and not worry about your getting wet.
They are cool. I was surprised
Yeah.
when I tried a pair on the first time. Can you talk a little bit more about the accommodations that we'll be staying in, and specifically for single travelers? How do you accommodate folks traveling alone?
Yeah, as with most of our trips, we try to pair you with another like-minded traveler when we can. Uh, and if not, there are single supplement possibilities. Now, with this particular trip, I am not exactly sure how that works, but your adventure specialist would know how that works and what it looks like. As far as the accommodations, there's only two this particular trip. It is the Captain Cook Hotel, downtown Anchorage. It's locally owned, which we try to do whenever possible. It's right downtown, very convenient, great views, even of Denali, actually. You can see Denali from the restaurant up top. And then Gold Creek Lodge, which is just really comfortable, many little cabins, and then of course a main lodge where we have our breakfasts and our dinners, and just get to relax, and it's very, very comfortable.
Excellent. Can you go a little bit deeper into the physicality of this trip? What sort of fitness level or terrain should people be thinking about when they decide whether or not it's a good fit for them?
Yeah, this trip is, I believe on the website, deemed difficult, and that's accurate. Because even without the waders and going in and out of streams, there is potential if we get there in the morning to Brooks Fall, to Brooks River. We get off the float plane. We walk a mile and a half to the falls if that's where the bears are, and then a mile and a half back where we would have lunch, and then a mile and a half to get back up there, and a mile and a half back. So 6 miles for sure, if not longer, depending on what the bears are doing and where. Now at Brooks, that's pretty much all flat, very, very flat, gravel. There's no uneven terrain, but you never know what we're going to do We want to, if it's possible, we want to get you into other river systems. And what that would entail is walking in knee-high streams potentially. If it's any higher than knee-high, we just won't do it. And I have a lot of contacts that I can sort of figure out if it's possible to go to a river or not, safety-wise. But prepare for knee-high river crossings. Of course, I'm there to help. I have a co-guide that will help. And certainly even some of our travelers will help other travelers cross these streams. Certainly up and down riverbanks, over hummocks, little grass mounds, you have to kind of navigate those a little bit. And certainly a lot of sitting on the ground when bears are close. Sitting is very important when bears are around because they are they use nonverbal communication 99% of the time, and they expect us to do the same, and sitting is a very non-threatening behavior. So that's where I like to be. And of course, with photography, sitting provides you a pretty good angle as well. So I would say it's dubbed difficult, and those are the reasons why.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. This is a great question. Is there any chance to see the aurora on this trip? If so, would you recommend bringing any additional camera equipment?
Man, that is a great question. And when I was putting this together, it didn't even cross my mind. It's so sunny right now, almost 24 hours of sunlight. So I forgot to put it in. But yes, it is a possibility. Now we're fairly far south in Alaska, but the sun is almost at its 11-year high. It's cyclical, and that's every 11 years there's a high. And we're almost right there at the high point. For aurora, you need three things to happen. You need darkness, which certainly later September can provide. You need clear skies, so that's the big one, of course. And the third thing would be you need a pretty good solar activity. So yes, and I know the next question would be what camera gear to bring. You basically need an fairly wide angle lens to get some sort of a foreground in the shot as well, some trees or something, and a fairly fast aperture, so 2.8 or lower. And if you don't think you can pack a tripod, even though they make really, really light tripods now, you could certainly try to put your camera on, say, a backpack or the deck of your cabin and try it that way. But yes, good question. Northern lights are certainly a possibility.
Excellent. All right, so circling back to the physicality, are trekking poles encouraged or allowed? And how do you define knee high, since everybody's different heights?
Those are both good questions. Well, I generally base it, first off, the trekking poles. Yes, you're more than welcome to bring them. I don't necessarily think they're needed at Brooks because everything is so flat. Now, what I have found is trekking poles in and out of the water do more harm than good because it's just one extra thing to worry about. And if the water is any higher than, say, maybe 1.5 feet, then the best way to safely cross streams is to create a human chain, in other words, arm to arm, as we all go across. So again, those trekking poles would not be necessary there either.
Okay, great. Can you address the bug situation? Are mosquitoes an issue? Bug spray recommended, needed?
Good question. At the welcome dinner, I will provide bug nets just in case. And both myself and my colleague will have non-DEET lemon eucalyptus based bug spray just in case. The mosquitoes are basically dormant by then. They're dead and their eggs are doing their thing. The one thing typically we might have to get into would be some sort of a sand flea that can be there. Now at Brooks, that's not really a problem because we're not in and out of the grass. But if we go to other river systems, they can be a bit of an issue. They were last year if the wind, the wind wasn't really a factor, and so they were out in full force. But with the bug nets and the bug spray, it is absolutely manageable.
Okay, great.
Good question.
What about how confident are you that bears will be at Brooks? Are
I
there
am
situations where they may not be there?
I am very, very confident that they'll be at Brooks. And what's really interesting is, just to go on a little bit of a tangent, the bears were late this year because the salmon were late this year. It has been an incredibly cold start to our summer. It's finally now warming up. So cold equals salmon being late, waiting for those rivers to warm. So I am thinking, and this is in no way a guarantee, but I'm actually thinking that the salmon will be continuing to run when we are there versus all dead and kind of floating downstream. Either way, we're going to see a lot of bears, but I'm thinking that A, we might have a warmer fall than normal, and B, there might be more salmon actually still swimming upstream than normal. But either way, even if none of that were accurate, we will still play in the snow if it's not as warm as I think it might be, and there will be bears.
Great. Do you have a recommendation for rain pants, a specific brand that you feel is good for the activity that you'll be doing?
Yeah, this is always a question that I get, and it's a very silly answer, but it's good. It's a good one. I would go to a local sporting store like an REI, talk to the experts. Arc'teryx is a very good brand, but even REI pants can be good. What I truly recommend is putting on that rain gear, the top and the bottom, and literally standing in your shower for maybe 2 minutes. And if you come out waterproof, if you come out dry, then that's what you need. And if it's leaking or if they're not as waterproof as they promise, you can go back and try again. I know that's such a silly answer, but it really, really works, and it's helped a lot of people stay dry.
Great. Um, One more question about the waders and the boots. Can you describe how the boots and the waders work together? Will everybody be given specific boots to wear over the waders or under the waders, or how does that all work?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we use waders that are for fly fishermen mainly, and so how that works is you put on their chest waders. So they go all the way to your chest, and then they buckle to your back just like suspenders would. And the booties, okay, so you'd have socks on, you would get the waders on, and then attached to those waders are booties that are neoprene. You would then take your neoprene bootie and put them in specific boots made for those waders that, of course, are provided for you. So you won't need to worry about bringing a special pair of boots. You would certainly want your waterproof boots for when you are not in waders. For instance, the first day, the first and the last day, even if we chose to go to somewhere else the rest of the time, we would not be in waders the first and the last day. We would be at Brooks just because logistically it makes the most sense. So you definitely want rain pants and waterproof boots. But in regard to the waders, you will not need special boots. We provide those for you.
Great. Thanks again for clarifying that. It's hard to picture that
I
if you've
know.
never seen it.
I knew there would be a lot of wader questions, so that's why.
Well, that's the last question we have, but we do have a comment I want to share. One of our viewers suggests going to explore.org to watch the bear cams for anybody who's
Yes,
interested in getting more familiar with Brooks Falls. Do you have any comments
yes.
about that?
Yeah, explore.org. There are 4 or 5 cameras throughout the river system. I think there are 2 at Brooks Falls itself. one just below the falls in an area where the less dominant bears tend to try to fish. And then there's one actually under the water itself, so you can watch salmon swimming around, and if you're very lucky, a bear swimming as well. And then one at the lower part of the river where I showed you the bridge. And it's really special, and right now is a really good time. Basically now all the way through the rest up until basically the last day of this trip that we're talking about, there's going to be bear activity on those cameras.
Got it. Okay, we had a few more questions come in. We'll try to jump through
Sure,
these really quickly.
no problem.
Um, I don't think the knee high was fully addressed. Can you go into what knee high really means? Is that about
Yes, so
2 feet high?
knee high would be basically for me, and what that means is about about a foot and a half. If it's any higher, if it's above my knee as your guide, then it's not safe, because if you're a little shorter, then of course there's going to be a discrepancy in what what knee high means. But I am actually there, and so of course is another guide that can safely get you across these rivers. But if it's any higher than knee high for me, then it just wouldn't be safe for me to help anyone else out. So I would say you are looking at about a foot and a half of water before that cutoff, and we don't push it any further, because of course safety is the number one priority. It's way above customer service or anything else. So we want to make sure you're safe.
Okay. And I was waiting for this question. What are the facilities like out in the field? If someone needs to use the restroom when you're out there, what do they do?
That's a great question. At Brooks Falls, or that whole general area, there are 3 different places for bathrooms. 2 for sure we would stop at. One's a little further out, and maybe not necessary to get to. It really just depends on a whole bunch of factors where the plane picks us up. But right near the visitor center, where we would be eating lunch, there are outhouses. And about a mile further, right before we turn to go to that last half a mile to the actual falls, there's another outhouse area. Now, outside of the Brooks River system, we're potentially anyway going to be in places with very little infrastructure, which means it is using nature to do your business.
Okay. Do you know if you can accommodate a size 15 boot with waders?
I do know that, yes, we had a gentleman actually in a 16 last year, and the lodge who actually provides the waders, because they do a lot of fishing throughout the year as well, they can accommodate that boot.
Excellent. I think this is our last one. Will you do any post-processing in Lightroom together? Should people bring a laptop?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. So essentially, we're out there all day, and I try to make time at some point in the trip to go over sort of editing 101, and it's based on my workflow because everybody's workflow is different. And then we'll also be able to kind of help other people with their pictures, both in composition, because I'm always teaching that in the field, what can be improved on. You know, we can all share best practices that way, then also help you edit as well to get sort of your own general workflow if that's something you haven't really experienced before.
Great. Well, thank you again, Justin, for bringing us so much, just such a thorough presentation and super enticing. It looks like an incredible adventure. I'm going to turn it back to you for any closing comments.
Yeah, thanks, Sunny. It really is. Like I said, the reason why I convinced NetHab to create this itinerary actually was selfish. I wanted to go there after everyone was gone, get the fall colors, these big fat bears. No one really goes. I mean, there are a few people, but I can count maybe on 2 hands the number of people outside of our groups that are at Brooks at that time. And And here we are, and it's such a special itinerary. I circle it on my calendar as soon as the season is over. I'm chomping at that bit, at the bit for 11, 12 months down the road. So if you want to experience real Alaska, really, really wild with very little crowds, these big, fat, happy bears, bright red salmon, fall colors, this is definitely the trip for you.
Mm. Well, thanks again to you, Justin, and thanks to everybody who tuned in. Please join us again tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I'll conclude the webinar. Have a wonderful day, everyone.